Yeah, and I think the whole thing I'm saying about like historical materialism and I don't know, I guess like existentialism, being in a dialectical relationship with one another. I guess like I'm largely referring to like, Dostoevsky's like existentialism, his brand of it. And really, I guess what he seems to be arguing in The Brothers K is that, there are certain things that we believe in because not because I guess we concluded they exist on the basis of like rational inquiry. If that makes sense. I think rational inquiry is just going to lead us to unbiased, but historical materialism. We're ultimately all subject to our material conditions. Like Foucault would talk about like, culture and like memes, I guess beliefs, abstract concepts. Those things shape us to sort of hold us into like, Plato's cave. Except we don't really, I guess to Foucault, we would never really get out of the cave. You can just keep stripping back the layers, keep deconstructing, but you never really get out of the cave. And we're kind of hopelessly conditioned and indoctrinated by everything that we've been taught. But again, I think all of that's contingent on material conditions. Because I think thoughts are basically contingent on matter. Anyway, I think like existentialism, like especially like Dostoevsky's existentialism, is sort of presenting these different things like the existence of, God, or like the existence of the divine at least, the existence of moral absolutes, free will, the afterlife. Like I'd say believing in these things isn't really on the basis that we looked at the available evidence and used our rational minds to come to this conclusion. I think like what Dostoevsky is saying is that characters believe in these things because like they need to. They have like a deeply rooted, I don't want to just say emotional need, but like an existential. And so it's worthwhile to take like, Kierkegaard would say like the leap of faith. Believe in these things despite there not being evidence, because if you don't believe in these things, you'll just go absolutely insane, like commit murder and stuff. So I guess yeah, that's like another I guess dialectical relationship. Yeah, you do feel a need to be rational and believe in things because, you know, reason and evidence support those things, but you also have this need to believe in things because not believing in those things kind of leaves you in a very dark emotional state and you don't want to be like depressed. Like ultimately discussing that, I might discuss that more in a different video. Um, as far as like how I personally resolve that whole, faith versus reason like discrepancy. I want to like pivot a little bit to talk about, I guess, another way that like Dostoevsky's existentialism is expressed. All of Fyodor Pavlovich's sons basically inherit, I guess, what I'm just going to call like animal instinct. Okay, Fyodor is basically he's an animal like in the true sense. Like he has like a wild appetite. He eats what he wants. He sleeps with whoever he wants to sleep with. He drinks as much as he wants. He's actually like a very shallow, like contemptible person, just given into like as his most primal, basic instincts. His interest in like philosophy and religion is like it's all super shallow. It's all about appearances. Really, he doesn't really care about any of those like higher things. He cares about like hedonism. Like I said, he's an unrestrained, undisciplined animal. And I think like all of his sons, and Smerdyakov too, like they all realize that they've inherited something of that. Just like I think like we all realize to some degree like we've inherited an animal instinct. And I guess it's just all like what do we do with that? I feel like Dimitri's probably somebody who wanted to, I don't know, contain that, you know, going in like going into the military, like trying to get that out of his system through discipline, ultimately failing pretty early on, and I guess arguably becoming the most like Fyodor, point where they're like, Fyodor and Dmitri are fighting each other, like money over like wanting, Grushenka. I feel like they're the most similar to one another. And ultimately, like Dimitri's attempts to, I guess, suppress his animal instinct, ultimately, like he lost the battle. Like I feel like Ivan is somebody who he tried to tame the beast through, I guess, like I said, like irrational inquiry. I guess this is, and I want to talk about a little bit about like Ernest Becker, and I guess the whole, idea of people will deny that they're animals, they'll deny that they're mortal, they'll deny that they are going to die one day by creating like a symbolic identity as like a shield. I guess in the case of Ivan, that's going to be like cold rationalism. He thinks he can use rationalism as a shield between like his himself and his psyche and the knowledge that he is like his father and is like an unrestrained animal that is going to die one day. And I guess Alyosha, on the flip side of that, his symbolic identity is he fully embraces, I guess, Christianity. To the point, like, he's the one who ends up, like, upholding, this belief in, free will and in, like, the divine and, moral absolutes in the afterlife, all of that. And I think ultimately what that shows is, like, I think Alyosha is the only one of the brothers who's able to make peace with, I guess, what he is. He seems like, I mean, clearly he's the only one who's, like, fully forgiven Fyodor. I think this ironically makes him the least like the father of all the sons. Yeah, that acceptance, that forgiveness, and ultimately, the loving sacrifice, and just being willing to, like, lay aside the fact that, maybe he felt like he was wronged. Maybe he felt like he was disrespected. But he doesn't hold a grudge. He doesn't have a chip on his shoulder. And it seems like he's able to let go of a lot. Then I think, like, Smerdyakov, I think we just need to see him as somebody who represents, I guess, resentment, okay? You've kind of been looked down on your whole life. You've always felt like you had something to prove, but then nobody really took you seriously. I guess you've been treated like a servant. You've been treated poorly. You've been controlled with fear. And I guess as soon as you realize that, you're in the driver's seat, as soon as, like, you realize, maybe I can get away with doing something really bad. I'm not going to spoil it. As he has that realization and he feels like he can escape, judgment, he pounces on that. I think that's what, like, resentment boiling over. Like, if you feel resentment and somebody's always putting you down, I guess as soon as you have an opportunity to lash out, you're going to do it. Like, it's not like a neutral action. A lot motivating it. And I don't really know why I'm talking about, like, Dostoevsky. I have, like, this vague sense that it kind of relates to what I said in the last video. Yeah, but I don't really know.